Alright, I don't even know if I actually want to post this video, but as you guys can tell by the title of the video, I'm going to be going over why we're racist. Because I've been thinking about it, and it's really weird, because personally speaking, I should have had some racism in my life, considering that I come from like a Middle Eastern background, but of course I look white, so that's basically it. And I've just started thinking about it and just kind of wanted to kind of put my outlook on it, I guess, on why we're racist and what really determines racism. So, the first reason that I would say that people are racist is because of society. Even though we don't really kind of want it to be about society, we still kind of have that societal aspect to it. Because it's kind of interesting, because one race will actually tell their kids that a different race is not something that they should be around because of, whatever they want to tell their kids. And it's pretty interesting because, we often associate that through very interesting ways due to stereotypes, which I will get into, to, just kind of what certain societies feel like is wrong with a different race. So it's pretty interesting how society kind of puts that whole aspect into the whole racism thing. Because I don't think it really depends on what a person really looks like. It should be more about what they provide to you, what kind of personality they have. Do they match your values? Stuff like that. It should, because just because somebody's a different race does not mean that they automatically think differently than you or act differently than you. For the most part, society basically tells each race how to actually live, which is very interesting to me. So that's why I think that that whole judgment thing goes into play, because we're always going to get judged by who's around us and society in general. So I don't really think that judgment in society really matter upon who we're around, what we're doing, what a person looks like, stuff like that, and like what a person has to offer. I think that there's also like a certain blame as well, a blame aspect, because there are certain races that blame a different race just because of what happened 100 years ago, just because of a he said, she said, stuff like that. And we're so tied down to blaming the other race for what happened however long back ago, and we're still kind of thinking of it the same exact way. No matter what happens, it doesn't exactly matter at the end of the day. That's already passed. It's basically a new society from 100 years ago. So instead of blaming another race just because of something that happened like 100 years ago, it shouldn't really matter. Which also gets me into the next thing is history. That history is always, there's always been racism even throughout history. Because there's always been a superiority between races, which is very weird. Because who said that one race was superior than another? It was basically just humans thinking that they were better than others just because they had better equipment than certain other people. So it's just very interesting how history kind of evolves into what it is and basically creates the society that we're in right now. So the more that we basically say that in history, this is what happened between this race and that race, this is why we don't actually look at this race the same way as that race and stuff like that, the more we're going to look at it in terms of having society tell us exactly who to hang out with, who not to hang out with, what kind of skin color you have, stuff like that. I don't really see that as something that really matters in that whole aspect to it. And there's also a certain fear aspect to it. Like certain races fear other races as well for the same exact reasons because of history, stuff like that. It's very interesting how one race can basically fear a completely different race just because of what happened thousands of years ago, and they're still, it gets passed down from generation to generation, and people still look at it the same exact way. Because I don't think that that's the way that we should really look at it. Because more than likely, if people go past that fear and actually go up to the race that they're fearing from, they can actually see that for the most part, they're the exact same people. They just do things very slightly differently. But for the most part, we're all the same exact being, even though one person has a very different skin color than the other person. It's just kind of something that's really weird when it comes down to it. I also feel like there's like a lack of knowledge when it comes down to actually looking at a certain thing. Because more than likely, if you don't have any background knowledge behind a specific thing, more than likely you're just going to be very naive in the way that you're actually thinking of a certain thing. That goes with anything. Similar to what I'm talking about right now, race. Like, for the most part, one race doesn't exactly have as much knowledge as another race to actually know exactly what that race is all about. So we try to basically associate our lack of knowledge with basically creating a stereotype of a certain race, and that's why we basically have all these fears and have all these judgments and have these societal norms between certain races. And it's not exactly talked about either. So for the most part, this is exactly kind of why I want to post it, but not really. It's not exactly talked about all that often of what a different race is all about. Because I'm not doing this just to say that one race is better than another. It's basically just kind of my ideas, as I've already stated, of what I think makes sense and what I've also researched. So I'm not exactly putting this out there to completely answer the question of why we're racist. It's just kind of my ideas and what I believe in, at least, when it comes down to being racist. So it's not something that I'm putting out there just to exactly answer the question. It's more or less to get the conversation going and really trying to get people to kind of see exactly what kind of ideas are out there. So the next one that I would actually say is that it's pretty easy to be racist towards another race because society does it. There's always judgment behind what you're doing. And we also do create these stereotypes of what a certain race does that makes them a bad race, of why it's different from us, why we shouldn't hang out with that race just because, you know, they act this way or they think this way or stuff like that that we don't even know about, you know? So we're not exactly educated on that as well. So we create all these stereotypes to make it easy for us to actually just be racist, and society allows it. It's pretty interesting, even though for the most part, we try to say that racism isn't exactly a good thing, but it's still around, and it's basically in society, whether we like it or not. It's just kind of there. It doesn't exactly matter if we try to say, no, it's not there. It's always going to be there, whether we like it or not, because of our history and how we've dealt with it and what we're trying to do. Because I don't think that anybody's really trying to look at it in a way where we're trying to fix it. Because we try to say, oh yeah, like racism is bad and stuff like that, which for the most part we know, but we still allow it due to those stereotypes and judgment and just, you know, making it easy for society to be racist. And last but not least, we want to just become accepted into society as well, so we basically just kind of go along with it, and we want to, like, us as humans, we always want to be accepted into a society that we're a part of. So if we're in a society that actually makes it pretty easy to be racist, we're more than likely going to want to be accepted because of our nature. So, you know, for the most part, we'll basically think exactly like them just because we want to be accepted. So it's pretty interesting how it works, at least in my opinion, of why we're racist. And again, this video isn't exactly to completely answer the whole fact of why we're racist. I'm just opening up the topic to it, and actually wanting to hear your guys' thoughts on it as well. So go ahead and leave your ideas in the comments down below. And as always, I hope you guys have a great day. I will see you guys next time.